Check one, two, check one, two.
I got? That was pretty good. $30. Oh, okay.
Hold on just a second. Camera.
So, call the Bryan County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any additions to the agenda or changes?
I'm good.
I don't have any. I have one change on the ordinance and resolutions. I'll move the prosecutor's office spot resolution up to the top before the music center discussion. It's the only change I have. Okay. Next is approval of minutes and claims.
I read them, reviewed them, I didn't see any issues that stood out. So I would make a motion that we approve the minutes and the claims.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, Ron Sanders, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tim Clark,
Yes.
Kevin Patrick,
Yes.
Our first agenda item is the appointment of our new highway superintendent, Sandra Poole. As you know, we've had a vacancy. We posted a position, interviewed the most qualified candidates, and selected Sandra. The appointment process, a vote to appoint, is the final step in the process. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Sandra Poole as the new highway superintendent.
Okay. Is there a second? I'll second. Vote.
Okay. Tim Clark, how do you vote?
Yes.
Kevin Patrick,
Yes.
Ron Sanders,
Staying.
Okay. Sandra, congratulations. Right there. Used to seeing you out there, Eric here. It's like, it's a change. It's that old age thing. So welcome. And you don't need to read those reports into the record. I learned. So that's good. Helensburg RSD, Kyle Myers, you're on, bud.
Is that mic set up? Thank you, Eric. I forgot to check.
Is that on, Eric?
Uh-huh.
Kyle Myers, I'm the Vice President and Treasurer of the Helensburg Regional Sewer District Board. Just giving you an update as to where we're at with acquiring building a new wastewater treatment plant in Helensburg. We actually just heard from SRF State Revolving Fund the other day. We were waiting on a interlocal agreement between us and BCRSD. We did not get that agreement. And SRF finally yesterday said, don't need it, and for us to move forward with bidding our treatment plant. So first advertisement for bids will be in the paper next Wednesday. I'll be dropping off the advertisement tomorrow for the Democrat. Second advertisement a week after that. and we'll be opening bids, I believe, at our June meeting. So first Wednesday in June. I don't know the date off the top of my head, but it's been more than a struggle for us to get to this point. More so just really in dealing with Brown County RC. They've made every attempt to delay us, and now really kind of holding up their end of the bargain as we've been going through this. Back in, I know I was here in January, kind of gave an update, but in December when we had a joint meeting between us and SRF, the original schedule was supposed to be that we would be closing on funding this fiscal year, which ends June of this year, for us to get a treatment plant, or to start construction on our treatment plant. BCRC was supposed to have plans pretty well ready so that they could approach SRF this next fiscal year for funding for it. In December, they only had 60% plans, and had no easement signed at that point in time, and SRF said, you're not close enough to be able to, to be bidding this. So they took our treatment plant from what was designed as 100,000 gallons per day, down to 14,000 gallons per day.
Repeat that for me, Kyle, what was it again?
Originally designed for our treatment plant was to handle 100,000 gallons a day
Okay.
to treat the waste. At that meeting, SRF basically told us that they were only going to fund us for a 14,000 gallon.
Okay, thank you.
So that'll really accommodate us. Currently, we average about 6,000 to 7,000 gallons a day through our current plant. So I mean, we'll be able to at least still maintain our current customers, but plus have some flexibility to add on people. The add-ons for us right now are pretty well limited because we're already, pretty much at our boundaries, our district, the sewer district. So I know I was shocked because I saw last week that they posted, they being Brown County RC, that they were putting the Bean Blossom project on pause, and then their post said due to funding. I have then since heard, even from SRF, that what they were told was that they don't have the support in Bean Blossom like they thought they did, so that's why they were putting it on pause. So I don't know which to believe. I also know they were just given $3.7 million from Aaron Houchin's office to do more design between Bean Blossom and Lake Lemon. So our frustration from Helmsburg standpoint at this point is, I know there's been a ton of money spent trying to get sewers in Bean Blossom, and then all of a sudden we're gonna put it on pause again. And I don't know why. I also know that in order for them to even approach SRF or any other funding agencies for a project, you pretty well have to have bid-ready plans in place and then say, we've got plans ready to go, here's our estimated cost or whatever to do this, will you give us funding? So if they're nowhere near, if they're only at 60% plans and no easements still signed, I don't know how they're saying there's no money out there for them to construct it. And then my fear is they spent a ton of money already trying to do something in Bean Blossom, and now they're gonna stop that, and they're gonna take $3.7 million and do what with it? I also know on our standpoint, because SRF changed our design from 100,000 gallons per day to 14,000, we have incurred at least another $150,000 in fees from our engineering firm to redesign those plans, and we don't even have that money to pay them. So they're kind of sitting, they've done the design, we're ready to go to bid, but they're kind of sitting there hoping one way they're going to get paid, and I don't have a way to pay them. But kind of my opinion at this point in time was the reason that had to be done was really strictly due to Brown County RSD give me some of that $3.7 million so I can pay my engineer for, getting our plans to where we need to be. I know from Hillsburg's RSD's standpoint, we are more than happy to take over territory from Bean Blossom to Lake Lemon, and we will make this happen. We can't guarantee you timeframes because that's 100% dependent on funding. But we will work towards, one, getting our new plant constructed, but then at least getting plans ready for bid for Sewers Bean Blossom and Sewers Lake Lemon. And then when we're approached for funding, we can offer, you know, a couple different projects and say, we got this one Bean Blossom, we got this one to start our project towards Lake Lemon. Which one can you fund? And go that way. So it's got to be phased out in each direction in several different phases to accomplish it, because to try to go even to Bean Blossom is, you know, their estimate in December was around $11 million, and that wasn't even accounting us having to upgrade our plant again to accommodate it. So I know through SRF, they usually say $6 million is kind of the magic number of what they'll give out as grant fund, and then after that, it's usually loan. And quite frankly, I mean, even from our standpoint, we can't really even afford a loan even for our plant. So we're pretty well getting most of our money as grant funded to be able to do it, because otherwise then our users' rates skyrocket. So I know I've thrown a lot at you. We've been working tirelessly on this myself for 5+ years being on the board. And I'm thrilled to death that we're finally moving forward and bidding our project and hopefully getting a new treatment plant, because our existing one's on the brink of failure at any point in time. I'm just kind of hoping that it holds out until the new one comes online. So, and then, like I say, my frustrations then just lie with dealing with Brown County RSD and just not making any headway with them whatsoever. So.
How much did you get funded for the current, is it a replacement or an upgrade?
Brand new treatment plant.
Brand new treatment plant, okay, for the 14,000 or
14,000 gallons a day, yes. So our current plant is a metal package plant that was put in around 1996. Life expectancy on that plant was really only about 20 to 25 years. So obviously we're pushing 30 years now on it. The new plant that we're building is what they call, it's an AeroMod technology. But it's really going from a small little package plant to an actual treatment plant, more so like what even Nashville or a bigger utility would have, that's then easily expandable. You know, when we need to, we can just, you know, design and add on another train or two or whatever we need to get to the capacity that's needed. Yes.
Is that the one with like a big round tank with a wand that goes around?
No, this one, I know, I've seen the designs on it, but it's actually kind of fits inside a rectangular tank. But then inside of it is got kind of different cells in there, and within that tank that does different treatment processes. And then it does also include a main influent lift station where everything comes into it, and then it pumps from that up into the plant to be rated.
Is the top covered or open?
It's open. It's really difficult to cover the tanks of a treatment plant because of the really corrosive H2S gases and everything else. You cover it with any type of a building, it's gonna just eat away.
Does that shoot oxygen in it at any time to like?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. There will be a building that's built on our site that will house blowers. Currently, we even have blowers right now, but they just sit on top of our plant with a little plastic hut over them. So now they'll actually be inside of a building. It'll be even quieter than what it is now, which we don't really get much complaints from noise or smell from our treatment plant. There are certain days, you know, immediate neighbors, depending on the wind or something like that, they may catch a whiff of something every once in a while, but it's usually not a consistent or an issue.
So Kyle, I think you came in either late last year or earlier this year.
January.
What's the January? See, time flies.
It is.
So the 67,000 gallons a day is what you're operating at, and you're saying going 14. I think last time you mentioned there's a reserve that you try and maintain, right? You don't operate at maximum 14,000.
Correct. Once we start hitting 80% capacity,
80%.
even, I mean, our operator is doing monthly reports that he has to submit to IDEM. And IDEM will even flag us if all of a sudden they start seeing that we're encroaching that 80% capacity as an average flow coming in. And basically would approach us and saying, okay, you're really starting to get close to your limit. What's your plan for upgrading? So.
Okay. And then the other thing that you mentioned, like the state revolving fund, you said the maximum grant funding that they can really contribute to is $6 million. Is that per project? Is that per phase? Or is that, I mean?
It's usually per project.
Per project, okay.
Now, I've heard, and I think it depends with them, but a lot of times, even when you go for a project like with SRF, sometimes they make you, like, once you complete it, they make you kind of, they're probably not gonna put you on their top priority list right away, you know, right after that for a couple of years, you know, unless you've got a real true dire need that you're going saying, this has to happen, then I think that's when they kind of take the special circumstances of it and look into it and say, okay, you know, we could fund you for something else again. But I think you'd have to have darn good reasoning as to why you're approaching them early in a sense to do it. So, but in my opinion, if you're saying, you know, you've got major issues with failed septics or whatever in one direction or the other, or a really desperate need for it, that, in my opinion, might be a special circumstance that they look into saying, okay, we'll fund you for another project. So.
All right. Well, kind of, I reached out, I talked to or emailed out to the SRF, the director, Jim McCoff, and he came back, and I was curious on the 85% number. He said, yeah, they asked the BCRSD to provide all potential customers with an estimate of what their monthly rate would be and request acknowledgement from interested customers to gauge interest. They use this method in unsewered areas and have suggested 85% participation of state fund grants are being requested. So that those requests didn't go in. And so then I saw and you mentioned, I saw on their website that they identified, hey, we're pausing or indefinitely delaying Bean Blossom and focusing on Lake Lemon because they got that $3.7 million. If I remember, was it a couple of years ago, didn't you both get like free money? I forget what they call it. They call it a loan, but really it was, you didn't have to pay back. Didn't you both get about $1 million?
It was forgivable. Yeah, we received a $1 million one, and that was for design of our treatment plant.
Okay, and didn't
my understanding is they received around the same time, maybe a few months afterwards, they received a little more than $1 million to do design for the sewer system to Bean Blossom. Because even from the beginning, when we were both talking with SRF was saying, okay, your schedules need to be delayed by a year. One, because we need to have a treatment plant up and running before we can really accept new flow. But then at the same time, they wanted to make sure that, you know, if they're going to give us money for a plant, that they're really close behind us for putting in sewers. And when that all of a sudden wasn't happening, you know, basically back in December when they were talking about schedules, it sounded like they were more like, you know, 2 years out before they're even going to be approaching SRF with, you know, with a project that they could fund. So having more than 6 months to a year lag and having close to 2 years, then that's when SRF's like, okay, Helensburgh at least needs the plant, we're giving them the plant, you know. And then they even said at that meeting in December that when they were ready for a project for sewers for Bean Blossom to come to us, they would also have to account in their funding request to upgrade our plant. So, which at the time when they were just throwing out numbers, our engineers said it'd probably be about a $2 million upgrade to go, you know, to a bigger plant as to what was needed for, you know, to accommodate that, so.
Okay. If your area was expanded west, include Lake Lemon, and you had the resources to do, how would that work? Would you want to take charge of any kind of the engineering?
Yeah.
Or how, okay, so you want the whole whole package? You
We would,
want-
our preference would be, in my opinion, I don't think you can just completely get rid of that sewer district altogether, because I think if you did that, you'd lose every penny of funding that was given to them, including that $3.7 million. But in my opinion, the county, you guys, the people that appointed them, need to basically take back control of that district, and then you can allocate out, to even us or whomever else to say, okay, we want to take on the district from Bean Blossom to Lake Lemon, and then whatever current projects that are ongoing right now, we want to take those over and see those through, and then if there's funding available right now for that area, then we want to take that on to be able to start doing the design kind of in both directions. And in our opinion, we would do it more or less simultaneously, if our plant's being constructed, that's going, my first goal would at least be, okay, if the plans are 60% to Bean Blossom, what do we gotta do to get those at least bid ready, and okay, let's charge forward on that, but then at the same time, okay, what's the phase getting towards Lake Lemon? I know it'd be a lot, but in my opinion, as desperate need as it is in Lake Lemon, and I know there is need in Bean Blossom, it might not be the same amount of need, but if you've already spent the money to get to 60% in Bean Blossom, why aren't you finishing it? You've already got the contracts in place with the engineering firms, everybody else to get you bid-ready documents. Where's my bid-ready documents? Finish that out, bid it out to engineering firms to do the design for Lake Lemon and get that going and figure out how many phases you're gonna have to do both of those projects into to make it reasonable projects to then approach SRF with as time goes on to say, okay, here's phase 1 of Bean Blossom, here's phase 1 of Lake Lemon, and then here's our next phases of it as to what that would look like, so.
Okay. I guess the final question I have, and then you mentioned on the rates, you did you estimated what the rates would be, and then you gave options at $9,250 versus $117. And then so you met SRF requirements for contacting your customers on utility rates and getting their acknowledgement and agreement as to what that was going to be, that change.
Yes.
Okay, I figured that was it. And then I think
we haven't, so we had a public meeting in January where we first kind of announced that those two options, because from the beginning, as the board, our objective was our rates are already high at 92.50. Whatever we need to do or whatever we can do to try to keep them at that, or even maybe a minor increase, that was our goal. In order for us to do that, looking at the rates and everything for this project, and when I say this project, this is us getting the new plant and then just maintaining our current customer base. We'll be able to add 10 customers onto our current customer base with this project. But our customers are the only ones that are paying for that operations of that plant right now.
okay.
So at that, to keep it at 92.50, we were basically going to have to turn over the control of the individual grinder station and the controls at everybody's house over to the property owner. So moving forward, something happens to it, you gotta call your own plumber or whatever, come out and fix it. If pump goes bad, you gotta replace the pump. Pumps aren't cheap. They cost us close to $2,000 just to buy the pump. So, our preference was that we keep maintaining those grinder stations like we currently do. Because we know our customers can't, they're barely affording the $92.50 a month that we're charging them, but that's what we gotta have to maintain things. That if they get hit with a $2,000 or $3,000 bill because their pump just went out, how are they gonna be able to pay that plus still keep paying the $92.50? So then we looked at it of, okay, that's option one. If our, we wanna keep it at $92.50, that's what we'd have to do. Option two is if we keep maintaining everything like we currently are, our rates would have to go up to about $117 a month. So at our public meeting, we addressed that, we presented that to at least the users that were there, and we even took a vote during that meeting with our users that were there, every single user that was in the room said, raise it to 117. We also wanted to, we still would like to try to get as much input from our current users as we can. So even in our March billings, we sent out a survey with all of our bills to every single one of our users and said, here's the option, here's what we're doing, here's the options that we're presenting to you, what do you want to do? I only got a handful of responses even from that one. I don't know if I've gotten any responses, maybe just delayed yet, but I've only had one person respond that basically said, no, keep it at 9250. And then I've got, I think 27 or 28 responses of raise it to 117, and then everybody else is just hasn't responded or hasn't chosen to vote. So
I'm curious, that question, you had more customers, does the rate stay the same, go down, go up?
if we didn't have more customers, the potential is that we could reduce that rate over time. Again, the biggest factor in that is really just dependent on the funding we get to do those projects. If it comes in and it's mostly or all grant funded, then we have a good chance to be able to reduce those rates, across the board. Obviously if we gotta acquire a loan, we just gotta take that into account whenever we're doing that. So.
Whatever happened to the SRF policy where they tried to keep it targeted at $85? I get that was a few years ago and inflation's gone up, but wasn't that a goal at one time for them to keep the rates down?
It's still their goal. I think that number has gone up a little bit just as the years go on, but that's still their goal when they're looking at a project from the standpoint of, okay, how much can we allocate as grant versus a loan to this one? And even when our rate consultant does their studies, they're looking at several different options of, okay, if it's 100% loan, rate's this. If it's 50% loan, this is what your rate is. If it's, 95% loan and 5%, or, 95% grant, 5% loan, this is what your rate is. And just trying to kind of show them how that rate number goes based on the funding that they're going to give to you. So, and again, that's why if you're aiming for 100% grant, funded, you got to try to really keep it close to that $6 million project, and then you stand a good chance of potentially getting it, so long as they have that much grant funding available.
Okay.
So just from the back of the napkin calculation here, assuming 80% of this of 14,000, and you said 92 customers currently?
No, currently we have 64.
64, okay, so there's another 32 to add to this. So if you go with your 80% capacity, you're looking at 85 customers you potentially could build in the plant capacity?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Kyle addressed your question on the boundaries thing.
Hang on a second.
He's got questions, sorry.
I don't know that you ever even got there, or I missed it, but with the Brown County Regional Sewer District, they never got far enough along to say how much their monthly fee would be, did they?
They were being given some number, because we both hired the same rate consultant. So they were given numbers all along as we were. And the way that it was working out is, of that rate, this is the amount that is needed to treat the waste at the plant. And then this is how much is needed, to do all your administrative, your bookkeeping, whatever, for the customers and the collection system. So the treatment rate was the same rate that we were applying to our customers as what they were applying to their customers. But then they would have additional costs on their end based on how are they going to maintain and operate their collection system, how are they going to do their billings and all that kind of stuff. There was talks of like, well, can we help them out? And when we were looking at that and talking to like our insurance agent, things like that, our insurance agent's like, well, you can't have your people go work on somebody else's stuff, because they're not insured to do that. It's got to be your assets. So when we went back and talking with them, we're like, the only way, if you want us to basically have our bookkeeper doing the billings and our operator and stuff and our maintenance personnel maintaining it, is that anything you put in the ground then has to become our assets in order for us to do that. And they didn't like that answer. So now they're basically gonna end up kind of doubling or, you know, adding more expense on their end because now they gotta hire their own maintenance personnel. They gotta hire their own bookkeepers and that kind of stuff in order to do that. So their rates probably, if that's the way they wanted it, and when we were trying to do this interlocal agreement, that's how we set it up. We were basically treating them as a wholesale customer, you know? Okay, if you're sending this many customers to us, here's your monthly bill every month. You divide that out however you need to between those customers, you know? And then those numbers were looking different, like our rates were gonna be different from what their rates were gonna be. I don't know what that number was, but
Okay,
I know they were getting.
wasn't the same scenario gonna play out? Okay, they put the Bean Blossom on hold, they go over to Lake Lemon. Is that not the exact same scenario gonna happen there?
Yes.
And then wanna tie in, that your insurance company's gonna say,
Yeah,
be doing that?
They're gonna have to hire their own personnel to maintain and operate that system, and we're gonna treat them as a wholesale customer and say, here's your treat, here's the rate we're charging you every month to treat that waste.
So then it's gonna be higher rate than yours.
Possibly, and then our rate won't really change.
Your rate what?
Our rate probably would not change. We'd have to maintain what it is, because ours is based on us maintaining our current collection system plus, you know, our treating, you know, the waste from our customers. So,
Well, okay. On that, you're assuming the customers go along with whatever the higher rate is gonna be for that particular service and I don't.
Is there any feasibility that if they're down around Lake Lemon to possibly start their own sewer plant down there instead of pumping it all the way back this way?
they can, but we did a study, I want to say 4 years ago.
The Ethel Morgan,
Yes, the
engineering
hometown
study.
engineering, basically SRF just paid hometown engineering to do that study to look at, you know, okay, if you need sewers in Bean Blossom, you need sewers in, you know, Lake Lemon, and Holmesburg already has a plant and they need an upgraded plant, you know, what's the most feasible option in doing that? And they looked at, you know, well, if you put a plant over at Lake Lemon, then it's this much. If you put a plant in at Bean Blossom, it's this much. And what it really came down to was to regionalize, and if we've already got a plant up and going and, you know, and upgrade it, that we were more or less the central hub between them all. You know, that your more ideal is send it all over to Holmesburg and upgrade our plant as necessary, and then, you know, maintain and operate basically the whole thing, so.
The conclusion from that study for the Bryan County RSD was to create a new plant in Bean Blossom,
Okay.
if you recall. And then they couldn't acquire land, didn't have support of the landowners to acquire land for a new plant in Bean Blossom. And then they tried to get the park land, land that was deeded to the state, that deeded back to the county, deeded Parks and Rec, and tried to get park land, put a new plant in, and DNR shut that one down. So at that point, the Bean Blossom sewer project that's been in the dream for 20 to 30 years kind of died to have a plant in Bean Blossom. And then the magic was, okay, let's have Helensburgh be the regional hub for treating waste. And so then they still kept, at that time, the whole idea was to have a separate RSD for Bean Blossom. And then it came, then you had two RSDs, one to collect and one to process. And, you know, that I never quite understood kind of the logic of that, but that's kind of where we're at. So I'll give you a little history. It's a bureaucratic challenge on the territories, and be glad we'll take a look at that. A little history on the Helensburgh RSD. The commissioners petitioned IDEM to create the Helensburgh RSD in 1995. The commissioners petitioned IDEM for the Gnawbone plant in 1997. We appoint the board members to Helensburgh. Gnawbone, IDEM allowed them to have their customers elect their board, so their customer elected. The Bean Blossom, what was unique is the council petitioned IDEM to create a Bean Blossom RSD. The county council did, and then the county council appoints 4 of the 5 members, commissioners appoint 1. So the Bean Blossom, that was in 2006. In 2013, the then Bean Blossom RSD petitioned the county commissioners at the time asked the Bean Blossom RSD to expand their territory. So the Bean Blossom RSD went to IDM and IDM approved it. That was in 2013. Then the name change from the Bean Blossom to the Brown County RSD happened in February 26. And I believe, and then the point of that one is when Bean Blossom's goal was to get service from Nashville. And then Evan Whirling was the president of the RSD at that time. And so Nashville wanted to tie annexation to that and blew it up. And that was the end of that one. Then Evan Whirling tried to get a needs study done in the Bean Blossom area called a Boots on the Ground. I don't know if you remember all the Star Wars battles that went on during that, the Boots on the Ground. And the health department shut that down. And the state would come out, they do an assessment of the area, they give an estimate on what the need would be. There was no repercussions. If they found out you had 100% failure, they would never say anything. They wouldn't hold you accountable. It was just kind of a free, objective, independent assessment. But so they refused to do that. At that point, Evan Whirling and probably at least four board members, I believe, resigned. Then Judy Swift-Powell took charge. She joined that board. She asked to start with a needs study. She got voted down, and then they elected a new board president that's pursuing the course of action they have up until now. So a lot of dynamics. The Brown County RSD got that $39 million phase 1 project from Woodland Lake to Lake Lemon, and then of course they got that's targeted for Bean Blossom, and then you guys got your chunk, to have a storage plant, and then now it appears like the wheels are coming off that whole grand design. So we need to kind of relook at that from a bureaucratic standpoint. We got the council, appointing the Brown County RSD, and then we're appointing you guys, and then we deal with IDEM, and then of course SRF. And the whole point is you want to provide the best value to our customers that you possibly can. Right. And if it gets to the point where the fees are exorbitant, it won't go. I forget the county that basically dissolved an RSD when they thought it would be a $100 bill, and it was a $200 bill, and the people stormed the castle and they dissolved the RSD. I think one of the first times in county history, and the county absorbed $1.6 million of a commitment from that RSD that got phased out. I don't think we'd had to do that here if that happened. You just transfer the assets. But anyway, my point is, by giving you all the context, it's a bureaucratic challenge. Be glad we'll take that on. We discover these things all the time, so it's been pretty interesting, and so we'll take a hard look at that. But can't thank you enough, and Helzberg folks for taking this on. I mean, I know you burn a lot of time, in there, and it's almost a thankless job, but I think you get rewarded eventually up in heaven, for doing these kinds of things. So that's where I think your benefits are going to come from someday. So thank you, Kyle, and I appreciate the brief, and we'll do what we can to kind of work our way through this quagmire.
We're happy to help in any way that we can and provide any information necessary, as going forward with this. So.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks.
All right. Next. Helmsburg, the upgrade to Indian Hill. This is another one of those kind of bureaucratic nightmares that we just keep at it. We just got informed that we didn't get the $400,000 grant from the Department of Transportation / Federal Railroad Administration. It was one of those first come, first served, and man, we were fast, but we weren't fast enough. And I guess it was kind of funny. It's like a feeding frenzy. I never saw criteria that the first ones in were the first ones to be granted it. And so obviously we made it in, but not fast enough for the others. So they're going to have another bidding process in the fall, and by God, we're ready this time. So I think we can stay there overnight and then make sure we can deliver that before anybody else, get our line out in the highway, to get our application in the door. But in the interim, just don't want to keep waiting on maybe we'll get funding, maybe we won't. And so we're looking for sources of funds. We got the sock factory money sitting out there, $230,000. If you recall, the sock factory was sold for $400,000. About $160,000 went to a stormwater project in Helzberg. And so this may be another opportunity to put some of that money towards opening up Indian Hill Road and the railroad crossing that allow access to 45. And also the other part of that money, if we're looking at, and I'm trying to confirm the $400,000 estimate for an engineering study so we can bid, be able to bid the work out and find that money. But first you got to have a plan. And so the other part may be money left over in the capital improvement bond. So we're looking at that. And then I've been in contact with our legislatures, been in contact with the hiking groups. People can't wait to get this thing opened. So the demand's not going away. We've got a lot of support. It's just finding the money and taking it and trying to get the money to start this thing going. So I'm going to pursue alternatives other than a grant. If we get additional funding for the PER, then we can apply for money to do the actual construction to bring that elevation up. So it's just, wow, it's amazing. A 15-second decision's costing us years and millions to fix. So that's where we're kind of at on that one. The next is the bridge inventory rating inspection report. Kevin, I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah, so sitting on that corner table right there is our bridge inspection report. Now, and it's been moving from draft, and we're going to have a recommendation from you here in a minute about approving that. But basically, that's a 700-page report that's been created by Aegis. It is two-year project in essence, what it is. So they're interim. The first round of their inspections came at the end of last year, and then the bridge report finale is taking us a little bit more time because they want to go through and look and draft and approve. I will make a correction to Ms. Mitchell in the last meeting. I said that the load rating on the Mount Liberty Bridge was 16 tons. It is not. It was 16 down to 6 in the last, and now it's been downgraded again to 3 ton. So that's why we're looking at that bridge on our list of next replacements. And again, like I said, the design activity is already underway. Clark Dietz has been contracted to go through that exercise and provide the specifications for it. So, given that, I went through about 400 pages of it. My eyes got tired. My plan is that it's approved tonight that we will make a digital link available for all those documents so that the public can see it. My plan is also request that we put it on the commissioner's webpage along with the highway department webpage. So, I guess, is there any questions from the board as far as content on the actual report?
Can we make the vote contingent, the motion contingent, so we can look at it? I doubt that there's any hangups in it. You said you got 400 pages to look through. Would you entertain that?
I struggle with that because we've had this report since the beginning of March, and they gave us digital versions of it. We've had printed reports that's been available, so I'm concerned about the data not being clear, Ron, or just...
Well, then, if you feel that way, go ahead and make the motion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty comfortable with what's there. I mean, I was actually kind of surprised in going through that data. When I was actually looking at the load rating.
How much that cost us?
That report, so the bridge inspection total is $460,000. That's what it said. And then the thing about it is 80% of that's paid by the federal government.
Wow.
So we've got 20% in it. So I think our part was when we issued the contract, or when they issued the contract, it was 80, I think we're at 86,000.
Since it's federal?
Huh?
Since it's got federal money involved, I'd like to move forward.
Okay. Yes, because we need to go and get our actual fund recovery on that. So as that part of it, so I would basically, if there's nothing else, I'd like to make a motion that we approve that report so that we can make it available and move forward.
Okay. Second.
Kevin Patrick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ron Sanders,
Yes.
Tim Clark,
Yes.
So just to clarify, we'll again make that report available on the 2 web pages. Teresa says you're going to try and get that. She's got the file, so hopefully we can get that taken care of tomorrow.
Excuse me, may I ask a question about that content in the report?
Sure, come to the podium.
I'm Michael Fulton, I live on Lanham Ridge. I'm just curious, not too many years ago, we switched over to the iron graded bridges. Is that working out well? Are they?
So what I've seen, so a few of the bridges that are iron graded, what it has, the substructure was not necessarily galvanized, and those particular bridges require a higher degree of maintenance than most, because it takes pressure washing, and then, as if not mistaken, some of them, depending on how the abutments are built and how the beams are set. I'm not seeing huge problems in this report with graded bridges. There's a couple. Like the point that I was going to make with Ron is I've seen bridges that have been built in the 1930s and 1920s where they're still carrying the maximum load rating, which is well over 80,000 pounds. I'm seeing bridges built in the 1980s and the 1990s, and they've got 16-ton weight limits on them. So I don't know what, maybe we had some stronger building mechanics back in the earlier years of this. So given that, I know that we are in maintenance aspect of it, doing a better job now of maintenance, going out and actually cleaning. When last week, the highway department actually took and proceeded with recommendations from that report before we finalized on putting riprap to, ensure that we don't have scouring, basically removal and undercutting of the actual footings and bridge abutments and that kind of stuff. So I don't see it as a huge problem, but I do know that we're actually doing on, I think, Mount Moriah, a replacement of one of those bridges where we're doing the understructure replacement. The decking will be the same.
Thank you.
So,
How many criticals you got?
if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to look. I don't know off the top of my head.
Where's my thumb drive?
Yeah.
Take a guess.
The criticals actually went up by 3.
So you have 3 altogether?
No, no.
4?
They got up by 3. So now they're they're in a total of,
11?
no, I don't think it's.
Please don't say 11. I don't like that number.
No.
Oh, Ron.
Give me just a second. Let me see if I can pull it up.
I thought there was 8 and then they added
That's
3.
what I thought.
Numbers run together. Oh,
Cute shirt, Sandy.
oh. What I would say. Just a total. It's always in the first few pages of this. Carry forward on record. So category posted limits, closed, which we don't have. So
We
what they
have
have is
posted.
replacement, and I don't know if it's exact critical, but right now in the replacement area, they've got 9.
Thank you much.
And so, just so you know, Mount Liberty Road is number 1. That's being replaced. Elkinsville, we have gotten a federal grant to do the engineering studies for. That's number 3. Gatesville is one that's not on here, but being fixed as part of it. There's a second bridge in Gatesville, so they're kind of all over the county at this point. Okay? I think the biggest one is
Elkinsville's about over 4 years out, isn't it?
the actual Elkinsville one, yeah, they're actually, the proposed bid for construction is probably not going to occur until sometime late 2029 or 2030. And that one's going to cost us more money because it's the inspection, because the federal inspections are much higher.
And NDOT's going to manage that project.
No, we'll manage that project. It'll be federally funded.
I thought because it's federal money, NDOT had to do it. No.
The money is being managed through NDOT to us.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, NDOT manages all of the federal funds for transportation, but it's being funded by federal dollars. Okay,
One more. So do we have any closed bridges?
we do have one. It's out at the Bond Cemetery.
And then do we have weight limits on on the other 9?
Not all of them, yes,
Yes, you do have weight limits on them?
except for 2.
Are you gonna fix that, or,
There's not a requirement to put it on it
okay,
at this point in time. That report would have identified if they needed it,
okay,
but they've identified basically the structure, so it's not gone to the critical part of it.
gotcha.
Much past that.
So the other 7 then have weight
Have
limits
weight
on them?
limits on it.
Thank you much.
Okay,
Moving on, that's it for the bridges.
that's all I have.
Next is the prosecutor's office, the bill operate transfer resolution. Kevin, you want to kick that off?
So we basically have the prosecutor's office, we did a follow-up meeting with the council. The councilman shared with them the approach that we're looking at and what we have as far as proposals and locations and things of that nature. So the plan at this point is to go through and consider using lot build operate transfer, which is a different delivery method for the county and the building. So right now we're using what design bid build, and then we've got some challenges on that. So what I've asked Dan Cartwright, who's our owner's technical representative, to basically take 15 minutes and kind of summarize how that process is going to work. So Dan, if you can join us at the podium, appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin. As Kevin indicated, my name is Dan Cartwright. I'm a consultant for the commissioners. My experience comes with 30 years of private industry, owning my own company as a commercial real estate developer. I've done professional consulting for Johnson County Commissioners and now Brown County Commissioners. I've been working with Brown County Commissioners since June of last year. I was also the town manager of Edinburgh, and I was the town manager of Bargersville before I semi-retired and decided to do consulting full-time. So that's a little bit about me and my experience. I will, if I can, I'll start out and kind of tell you about a study that we did about 2 months ago on all the potential sites and the buildings that could be used for a prosecutor's office. One of the first places that we discussed and got involved in was with the town of Nashville, their old police station. There was some consideration to use that. Those negotiations apparently stalled or died. And so we went on and so we started looking at other locations. As well as evaluate the existing prosecutor's facility. The existing prosecutor's facility is it's real close to condemnation. It really is. I mean, there's a lot of problems with that building. A lot of structural problems as well as environmental problems. And not only that, it does not, it's a safety problem, security problem, and it's not big enough to satisfy all the needs that the prosecutor has. So we looked at, okay, what property does the county own that we could build a new prosecutor's office in? We looked at the courthouse, possibility of adding an addition onto the north side of the courthouse. In order to do that, it would take a 2-story structure attached to the courthouse, and the whole looks of the courthouse would change. And when I say we, let me back up for a minute. We met Kevin, myself, the sheriff, the prosecutor, and the judge met to evaluate any of these things, all these locations after I did the research on them. So the other option is to look at the law enforcement center. It makes sense from that standpoint that prosecutor's office might be best to be out at that location. So I looked at the property based on aerial photographs and dimensions, and we're looking at potentially around 3,700 square feet building. Okay, that was based on a design that was done 2 years ago, 2024. Apparently the commissioners hired an architectural firm to do a conceptual design and spent a lot of time with the prosecutor to come up with what size of the facility they would need and what the office layout might be. So we looked at, okay, well, will a building 3,700 square feet fit out there at the jail? There's a grass area on the northeast corner of the parking lot. Part of that grassy area is in a 100-year floodplain. The majority of it is not. So the first thing I had to do was identify where the floodplain was to see if the building would actually fit at that location. It will, outside the floodplain. To do that, it would take some modifications to the east end of the parking lot, but they're not huge modifications. So that would be a good location for this building. The sheriff, the judge, and the prosecutor, all three agreed that's where we need to build. None of them liked the idea of building on the side of the courthouse. So we did do studies, or we did discuss this in length with the affected parties before we got to the point of where we said, okay, let's do it through a build, operate, transfer agreement. So let me tell you about the build, operate, transfer agreement. For political subdivisions, political subdivision identified as a state, a county, a municipality, a town, okay? It has actually been the go-to process now. It's very active. There's multiple counties, state of Indiana has done BOT, state of Indianapolis has done a BOT. The closest BOT that I know of right around this area here is Edinburgh, in the fire station they built a year ago. But Morgan County has done a BOT, some BOT projects. I believe it could be Morgantown, or it was either Morgantown or it was Martinsville that did it, but in that county. So there's been several projects. So let me tell you what it is. It's a state statute that per Indiana Code 5-23. It identifies the procedural requirements to do a BOT. BOT, build, operate, transfer. You hear me say BOT during this presentation several times. And what it amounts to is you, through Indiana Code 523, the political subdivision can actually negotiate with a developer, okay? The first step to do that is that the political subdivision has to adopt the BOT statute as identified in Indiana Code 5-23. The commissioners have already done that. You did that about a month ago. That didn't mean anything except for now, if you choose to proceed with a BOT project, you can. What that resolution did is that if we decide to proceed with the BOT project, we will follow the rules and the Indiana Code. So that step has been done. Anytime after that statute has been adopted by resolution, then the political subdivision can put out a request for proposals, okay? And that's what we're here tonight for, is to discuss putting out a request for proposals for BOT project. When the BOT projects, first of all, it's not a public letting. It doesn't have to be public information on the proposals, okay? It's a negotiated thing with the developer. When the proposals are received, there are certain criteria, and as in the request for proposal that Barnes and Thornburg has prepared for us to look at tonight, you'll see there, the first step is we receive proposals from qualified developers, okay? Once we do receive those proposals from the qualified developers, they must give to us, include in the proposal, their experience with the BOT process, their experience with construction, their ability to finance the project, the construction of the project, identify 3 other projects that they have successfully completed using the BOT project with names and phone numbers and contact information, a detailed approach of how they would proceed with this project, and that would be how to approach the site selection, which we basically have already done, the design coordination, the construction and delivery, the risk management, the cost control, everything associated with it, with the design and the development of the building. I've had the question thrown at me at this point in time when I've talked about this to other companies. Okay, well, how do we know that they're going to design something that we're going to be satisfied with? Well, there's a committee that is formed, okay, and that committee would be involved in the entire design, to sit down with the design. You know, more than likely that design, well, obviously that design committee would include the prosecutor and possibly, I don't know, possibly the judge, but and also representation from the commissioners. So the first part of the project is the scoping period. So what we would do is we would receive the proposals, evaluate the proposals, check their references, their record, their background, their financial capabilities, etc. And then we say, okay, this company here we believe is the best company. So we would say, okay, we're entering into a scope period. Okay, the scope period is nothing more. It's not a resolution. It's not the award of a contract or anything. But hey, we want to work with you to get to the point where we can actually pass a resolution and hire you. All the risk is on the developer. Everything I talk about here, the risk is on the developer until the project is completed. When I say risk, I'm talking about the financial risk primarily. So during the scoping period, what the developer would be required to do is to do all the feasibility study, the conceptual studies that has to be done regarding environmental concerns, the floodplain concern, the stability of the ground to build this facility on, all that pre-engineering stuff before the actual construction documents are done. That could cost thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, okay, to do that, which would be the county's responsibility if it was built the normal way of just designing a project and putting it out for bid. It would be their responsibility to hire an architect. Then it would be their responsibility to give us a conceptual design of the facility. So we know what the facility looks like. We know what exterior elevations would look like. We know what the floor plan, basic floor plan would be, and we know the location, the site plan, the location of actually where that building will be. The most important thing is they would give us a guaranteed maximum price. Now, when I say guaranteed maximum price, there are no change orders. Okay? Every project I've been involved in the traditional way, there's always change orders. Okay? And a lot of time the change orders are because the designer overlooked something or made a mistake, and then there's a change order, and who pays for the change order is the municipality or the public entity. There are no change orders. It's a guaranteed, there's no change orders, a guaranteed maximum price. During the scoping price period, okay, clear up to that point in time, at the end of the scoping period, we have a guaranteed maximum price of what the project's going to be. We have a location, we have a site design, a site plan of where it's going to look and where it's going to sit and what it's going to look like on the overall project, overall law enforcement center. We have a plan, a building plan, a layout plan that is satisfactory to the prosecutor and the commissioners. And we have a detailed approach on how this is going to be funded during construction. Okay? There's multiple ways for them to do that. The list is too long to even get into right now, but it's no cost to us. The only reason why it could possibly be cost to us if we decide to draw down the bond and make payments. Again, that's a negotiated thing later on down the line that we can talk about. But there's no cost. Basically, there's no cost unless the commissioners made the decision to cover some of those costs. But there's no cost. We select this developer that we choose after we get all this information. And that developer then would give us a performance bond. A performance bond to complete the project and complete the project with a guaranteed maximum price. Then there would be a resolution at a public meeting at the commissioners meeting to award a actual agreement with this particular developer that we have selected. Then there's the construction period. During the construction period, we're not spending any money. The county's not spending any money unless they decided to pull down its bond and do progress payments, but it doesn't have to. There's no cost. After the construction is done, then there's a final walkthrough. Okay? And again, there's been no change orders on this project. The only reason why there would be a change order project is if Brown County decided they want to go with a more expensive stone facade on the outside of the building, let's say, or add square footage or add a basement or whatever that wasn't originally planned. Then, of course, there's a change order. But as long as it is according to the conceptual plan, or the schematic plans I should use, I guess, there'd be no change orders to the project. When this walkthrough happens, final walkthrough, we look at everything. Okay, we look to make sure that the paint on the walls are the color that we wanted. We make sure that the carpet is the kind of carpet that we want. We want to make sure the door grades is what it is. We want to make sure, obviously, that the building is the right size. We're already going to know because we're involved in the design all the way through the design concept. But then, after we're satisfied with the building, then the county commissioners accept the building. And then, if they haven't already used some of the money to help finance the construction for the developer, which is not a requirement, they haven't spent any money. So you got a building completed on your property and you got no cost. Okay, so there's an unbelievable amount of risk for the developer. If we decided at the end of the project, believe it or not, I've never seen this happen, I don't know anyone that even knows of this ever happening, but according to the statute, if we decided we don't want the building, we walk away.
We don't do that.
But that doesn't happen. I mean, it doesn't happen. So that's the basic process. And what we're looking for, and right now we have about $2.4 million left in the general obligation bond. And this project is going to be a total of $1.3 million to $1.5 million is what this project's going to be. That would have to come from the bond. Just depending how soon it happens and to what level of design that we would want. I'm pretty confident though it will not be over $1.5 million. It could be as low as $1.3 million. So I kind of rattle along here, and I just want to make sure that I covered the basics. But what we're looking for tonight is the approval to put the request for proposals out for this BOT project. Again, just because you put this out, just because you receive proposals, doesn't mean you're doing anything. Basically, what you're doing is you get your building conceptually design free. Is what it amounts to. And then we're going to make a decision, and it'll have to be a formal public hearing or resolution to get it under contract. But I'll answer any questions if I can.
I think I just want to clarify one thing for you is that is in this basically condition of anyone that gets engaged in this process from the development standpoint, any.
And that's the reason why all the municipalities, the government agencies are going this way.
Well, Dan, to me, from a quality perspective, the only way that works is you have outstanding communications and a near perfect process. So it sounds like they've got this down to a science. That's a lot of risk on the developer.
It's a lot of risk on the developer, and there's very few developers that would take that risk. But the developers that do take the risk have extensive experience doing it, and they have a team that they are very confident in, and they know that once they start the scoping period, they're going to complete it all the way through. You know.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Questions were good?
I'm just wondering what the transfer portion means.
Can you come to the podium and give us your name?
I'm Phil McCown. Not familiar with the BOT process, and I'm just wondering what the transfer portion actually means.
So the actual transfer portion actually occurs at the point when we accept the building.
Okay, so it's the acceptance, transfer from the developer to the.
Correct.
Thank you.
Sherry Mitchell. Mr. Cartwright's not correct exactly. If you have a maximum guaranteed price, you're going to pay it once that project's done. Did you gentlemen do a value for monies on this analysis? Why didn't you go with a direct bid build?
Because we've had horrible experience with that process.
Because you had overcharges once? Or
We-
change orders? They
We've had change orders.
Once?
Once,
I'm asking, once?
so in the last two projects that we have dealt with, we've had change orders.
Okay. You could still have change orders here and still have to pay them because you have a maximum out-of-pocket price that you're gonna pay anyway.
Again, so if you're not going through the exercise of structural changes, square footage and things of that nature, it's not my understanding.
I'm sorry, what?
So if we go and accept the concept that's put forth with the design that's presented,
So
and we
the
accept
maximum bid is what
the
you're talking about?
maximum bid is what we would pay. There are no change orders.
Okay. Because you're gonna pay the maximum bid.
You will be paying whatever the set bid is.
Yeah, maximum bid, yeah. You take us out of the transparency part of this, you realize that, right? I mean, he did just tell you that we won't be able to see your bids, that he'll hire a contractor and he'll make an agreement with that contractor. And none of us will have any idea what you're doing. I don't like it at all. At all. Yes, Ron.
Well, there could be change orders if,
You're just gonna pay 1.5, that's all there is to it. So you're still gonna pay for that change order, it's just gonna be in a guaranteed price, one little pocket. And you're taking us out of this. We have no idea. We're not gonna get the lowest bid, we get the bid that he wants, the guy he wants. We've already paid him $9,000. He's been working on this since what, the middle of 2025?
No, actually, the other project,
You've been paying him since June of 2025.
not for this work.
Whatever, you've still been paying him. I
Okay, so
have your funds, I have the entire fund, and I did look at it. But we're gonna be paying him and then paying someone else. The developer will want, what, 7 to 12% on top of the project just to be the developer? Is that about right? You don't know? No, it's not right?
No.
Yeah, you should know that. You should know that. You're spending $1.3 million. Please be careful, gentlemen. Yes, Ron?
one thing to the point is, when I read that, what you're saying about the transparency,
There is none.
well, when I read that, it's, he oversees the project,
Yes, I know.
and it's not,
He is not accountable to me. You are.
But he's accountable to the Commissioner's office.
Whoopty.
Then what's your point? If we go design, build, we're accountable there as well.
I don't even know what you're gonna be building. I don't even know what it's gonna look like. I don't even know how much it's gonna cost, because I'm never gonna see any of those things.
what I read was.
This is a non-transparent transaction here, and I don't like it.
What I read was that they're to contact him, they're not to contact the commissioners, they're not to contact the county.
Yeah, you hired an OTR. I'm very well aware.
I just wanted to clear that.
I got it.
Is there anything else, Mrs. Manager?
No, but I'm sure we're gonna have lots of arguments about this.
Thank you.
And I got a question. We put out the RFP, we get the response, that's public information?
It's up to you.
Okay. All right, so all the documents we would get, projections, this and that.
That's just to hire the developer, isn't it?
It's up to you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, that's all I have.
If I can just say one thing, I really don't understand, well, I'm not gonna ask a question, but the guaranteed maximum price, okay, is a guaranteed maximum price, okay? That's all it is. There's nothing else about it. It's just the maximum amount of money you're gonna pay. Unless, like Ron said, it would change.
Square footage or some significant structural design.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
All righty, Kevin, what's next? Need a,
I don't have any follow-up to that.
okay, do we need any kind of vote or?
So I would basically, as part of this, I was going to basically recommend them to go through the exercise of authorizing the release of the RFPQ. That would be my motion.
Okay. Second? I'll second. Roll?
Ron Sanders, how do you vote?
No.
Tim Clark,
Yes.
Kevin Patrick,
Yes.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the Music Center Admin Agreement, second reading. The resolution is number 2026-04-001-0001. Title is Resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the County of Brown, Indiana, approving the Second Amendment to the Administration Agreement relating to the Music Center venue and Performing Arts Center project. Let me just summarize just real quickly the key points of this. The only change to the administrative agreement that we're suggesting is to Section 3. States that the Music Center Board of Directors can contribute, if permitted by law, 75% of the excess revenues to the Brown County Foundation. The change is for 100% to be continued to the Board of Commissioners. Again, if permitted by law, so it's questionable legally. I think if the new commissioners review this contract today, that's something we would unlikely approve because of the uncertainty regarding the legalities. The county council, once that money is returned to the county council, when they were polled on this issue, 6 of the 7 county council members wanted to keep things the same. One councilman did make a commitment one way or the other. So in essence, the county council, the money's returned to the county council could write a check to the foundation if that's what they want to do. So kind of a win-win. What the resolution does, it's very specific. It authorizes the president of the board of the commissioners is hereby directed to discuss and negotiate with the agreement parties to effectuate an agreement on approval of the Second Amendment to administration agreement by the agreement parties. Again, is discuss and negotiate. So that's really what this resolution is all about. How that will happen is through working sessions. The council has at least one working session a month, generally 9 to 12. And in our case, and when they start, there's not going to be a vote at a working session. We'll talk, discuss, get everybody's input that has a stake in this kind of process or interested. But again, it'll be a working session, so everybody will have a chance to speak their opinions or voice their strategies. So Ron, I know all 3 of us have a little different twist on how this thing can go. We can discuss that at a working session. When it goes through to the point where we're ready to make any kind of change or formal decision, that will be at a public meeting. So again, all this does is authorize establishment of discussion and negotiation that we'll do in a meeting in this room that will be streamed in a working session. So, discussion here. Questions?
I just don't want to take apart a working machine. Yeah, originally I wanted to sell a music center. Then I wanted 100%. And I just keep getting educated more and more. I wish they were here tonight, okay, so they could answer some things. And yesterday, Mr. Clark, I believe you were right about the 1 million being in the capital improvement thing, plan, that it wasn't to make the mortgage payments, okay? But they're currently making mortgage payments, paying money in lieu of property taxes, given excess revenue. They're paying all their, the help that they do pay. They're paying the performers. I mean, they got a working model, okay? And at this time, I don't want to wreck or take apart a working machine. And then, in 25 more years, when the loan is satisfied, then it will be transferred to the county. And you got a lot of volunteers that are working for free. The board, to my knowledge, don't get paid. They got a few employees out there that do get paid. You got a working model. Like I said, at this time, I wouldn't want to do it. I would like to talk to them some more. And I don't necessarily want to go out there and even tell them we want X amount of number of the profits. I'd like to talk to them and see what they would be willing to do. I don't want to force this on because I'm pretty sure they're not going to sign it. I'm not interested in getting in no more legal battles. Like I said last time, I just like to be more diplomatic about it and see what we can come up with.
Well, get back to what the resolution does is allow that conversation, discussion to happen in an open forum, in a public meeting. So if they want to come back, if you want to come back and say my position is X at a working session, that's fine. If they want to support that, if they want to support your position or identify another, they can certainly do that.
It's an open meeting at the Maple Leaf meeting. Anybody can come in.
These meetings are streamed. It's going to be a commissioner-led working session, and the public, as well as the parties on the administrative agreement and other interested parties are free to express their opinion regarding any kind of change. And maybe the ultimate is, the consensus is no change at all, fine. But we have that in public meetings, to have that in a working session, let people have that voice. That's all this resolution is doing.
Basically, I'm not interested in turning you loose on them.
I don't know what that means, so. Any other discussion? Yeah, go.
I don't think I have anything.
Excuse me, Phil McCann again. I'm just wondering, what is the purpose of this resolution? What does this address, or what need does it address that we didn't have before?
Okay, I identified what the one change
Yes.
identified in the agreement on the questionable legality, if permitted by law, address that. And the other part was to get greater public input on options, to either reinforce the status quo or request a change.
Well, why do we need a resolution to get greater public input?
Because we're changing, we can change the administrative agreement. When you negotiate different changes, there could be more changes or no changes in the administrative agreement. That has to be done in a public meeting. And to have those kind of public meetings, you need a resolution to endorse. And I guess if you want an opinion from our attorney, he wrote these documents, they can provide that.
No, I'll accept that. I'm not familiar with that process, and I'm just curious as to why we're doing this now and what the motivation is.
Greg Taggart, can we not talk to them now without a resolution? Are you guys need a resolution to talk to them?
This is a formal process. Before we went through unofficially kind of with a 50-50, I think Ron, we started off at 100%. We said, okay, let's do the 50-50. We did it outside of this meeting, the meeting wasn't streamed, it wasn't public. So what this does is make everything public.
Everybody can go to the meetings.
Puts everybody on record.
You can go to the meetings now without a
Okay, well,
resolution.
public's not, it's not streamed. Meetings in this room are streamed. That's where these working sessions are going to be. So that's the process.
I think this is a waste of time.
Okay. Others?
So to answer or go back to the reason of why, so there is a clause there, which I've said countless times, that if it were a clause that I were looking at a contract today, we would not sign. I wouldn't sign it, would be willing to sign it, which is permitted by law. The comment that I'm going to make for myself is the reason that we're looking at this, or the reason I'm interested in looking at this, is that right now we are going to have significant challenges in 2027 and 2028 with regards to funding. And those significant challenges, and again, I've made the comment in all of this in meetings, is there are bridges and roads that need to be dealt with. Now, we've had some help from Ed Wadila to help us identify that there may not be as bad a funding issue, as long as we can get really good at projecting our revenues to work these things. But there are still 9 replaceable bridges over the next 10 years that have to happen. So for us, since we don't have heavy industry, since we don't have huge industry in this county, and tourism is the biggest part of it, and the stream that comes from that is the innkeeper's tax. So those kinds of funds at this point can't be allocated to do any of the road or any of the other things that have to happen. So where do we go? Well, the only place that I see where I can look at an opportunity to improve our financial standing as a county is at the music center. And I agree, I don't like to tear down something at the music center because it seems to be functioning. The conversation I think is focused on, is there any board willingness to move with regards to the distribution or changes and things of that nature? So that's where I'm at.
Okay, and then in addition to the infrastructure, it's public safety as well. I mean, the intent of it, raising the innkeeper's tax from 5% to 8%, the whole intent was to fund public safety, which the legislature, the way it was presented, said you can't do it with that particular revenue. public safety is the sheriff, emergency services, fire department, it's the ambulance service. So again, another source of revenue. And so that's, another need for the county.
And again, I know what we're trying to do with regards to other activities as it goes through and offsetting costs with regards to tourist activities, like finding ways to financially support 4-H fairgrounds and those kinds of things with innkeeper tax money. But at the end of the day, I don't know that that's going to be a significant contribution to be able to address the shortfalls. I anticipate that we're going to have.
And the resolution opens up for public comment. Again, the meetings, the working session will be in here, they'll be streamed, people will have a chance to voice their opinion.
Is there anybody else in the audience
Yes.
like to comment?
To be clear, gentlemen, so that the public is aware, your resolution isn't changing the admin agreement because you can't do that unilaterally.
Correct.
You have to have the other boards agree with you, and they're never gonna do that. I don't know why you just don't go to them, Tim, and have a conversation with them about, hey, can we change this? And then have them agree with you and then get it done that way. Because I think you'd get more, what do you say about honey and
So
bees?
we have to be a little clear about that. We as three commissioners cannot engage in that conversation without it being a public meeting. Per open door law.
It
we
would be a
cannot-
public meeting. You could go into the Maple Leaf board meeting and have that conversation and say, hey, gentlemen, I've had that conversation with Mr. Herring, me, myself, and I, said, why are you fighting this? I asked him flat out to his face. I will not answer that for him because that's not my job. Your resolution's not gonna do anything. You can talk to them anytime you want. You can haul them in here to talk to you, also in a public meeting. But without those other three, and I think that Ron is right, that you're probably creating adversaries as opposed to people that you can collaborate with, by trying to push this. It doesn't, it's not gonna sit well. And if they really wanted to, they could never have excess revenue. They could buy capital improvements. So be careful.
Understood. Anything else, Ron? Anyone else?
The part that I agree with is we're entering into where I just don't know where all the money's gonna come from. And I actually think that the people on the Maple Leaf board understand that we're probably gonna need some money. And I've even heard one of them say, we understand, we maybe need to do something. And they did. They raised the pilot project and give us 10,000 more. But the other thing that I don't want to get too deep into it, but if their money's supposed to go, that $1 million is supposed to go for capital improvements, I don't see why they couldn't have took the 200,000 that they took from excess revenue for the wetland project and took that out of that fund. I understand that fund would have to been reimbursed, and I can't answer that for them. This stuff's high finance to them. This is pretty serious stuff, and I'm still learning it. Okay, I won't say it's above my pay grade, but I'm gonna have to work to get to that pay grade. And they're more than willing to talk to me and be nice. They've been nice. I get along fairly well with most of them. I'm thinking we can probably do something with them. I just don't want to throw gas on them and light them, and I don't want that. I'm not interested. I'd rather, we're all part of the community. These are all upstanding people. They're reasonable people, and I think we could come to something.
Ron, that would be communicated at a public meeting at a stream that people can watch and participate in versus your one-on-one off-site
It's
kind of
not,
meetings, and you can still do that. You can meet one-on-one and you can do
I'm
that,
not
bring it
meeting
back,
one-on-one.
bring it back to working session and stream that for the public.
I've never
Make the
met any
case.
of them on
Make the case.
one-on-one. It's always at the meeting, everybody comes in, everybody talks. They let me get up and ramble as much as I want, and they're nice people. They're good people in the community. So let's not poke them. I'm done.
So the question that I have is, that there's people and all of that, so we come down to the point of, we've had how many conversations at this point with them during that board meeting?
I don't know. I've missed a few board meetings, I'll give you that, but other people have missed them too.
Excuse me, Michael Fulton. I haven't been to a commissioners meeting in a number of years, but I do want to say I've been very impressed. I think you conducted the meeting very professionally. I would certainly encourage you to have conversations. I don't know how best to approach that organization to have those conversations, but I think if you interact with them, I've seen you interact this evening, I think you can make progress, and I think everybody's going to be reasonable.
Thank you, Michael.
All right, Michael. Yeah, Dwayne Parsons, I got a quick question. I thought we had a setting commissioner that was appointed to the music center
Oh, give
to
it up.
sit in on the meetings. Is that correct?
Give it up, Dwayne. I'm not your whooping boy.
It's a question.
No, don't go there.
Mr. President, are you running the meeting or is Ron? I'm just asking a
You asked
question.
a question. Ron Sanders is appointed to the, and he said, and we said as much in meetings, and he's addressed the fact on meetings, and he addressed the fact they don't.
I know.
take orders to be
Yeah,
participated.
good,
So
good.
what's your?
Well, he had mentioned that he needed more information and all, and I thought maybe that was something you could obtain at the meetings if you were there. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Okay, kind of close it off. Entertain a motion.
I make a motion to table it until I can go to the 28th meeting. They're obviously not here. I would not feel comfortable voting on that tonight, other than to table it.
So the 28th meeting is at what point? Because again, if you go down that path, anything that has to be discussed between ourselves, because again, that's a public decision, has to be addressed in here. So what's the plan?
Well, I can go to the meeting. I'm sure some of them's watching it. Talk to them, see if we can get them back in here, because basically they've not showed up. They've not showed up to the talks, you know, the ceasefire or whatever you want to call it. Let's get them back in to the table and talk to them. So let's schedule it for the first meeting in May.
So schedule, well, you lost me here. We can call them back in. That's the point on the resolution, the point to have the working session that we can all attend. There's no votes that will be taken at the working session. So that's a chance for people to have an honest conversation.
Yep.
And it does, and open to the public.
I made a
I don't
motion
know
to
why
table.
everybody's afraid of doing that.
I made a motion to table. Is there a second?
No second, so motion's not carried.
Wait a minute.
No, I'm not, again, it's a frustrating point about this. I have an understanding and I want to engage in this, but the frustrating part about this is you've got a board meeting that you can go to. There's other business, obviously, that can take place. To me, in this particular situation, are they willing to have a dedicated meeting to meet with the commissioners to have this conversation?
I can only assume that they would. I can't guarantee you anything as far as what they're at to do right now.
And if that doesn't happen, are you going to be willing to move forward with this approach?
I will be willing to see what happens then. Let's get them back to the table. You're wanting me to predict the future? I can't predict the future. I have a gut feeling. That they'll talk to us.
Are we getting them back to the table in a public meeting in this room?
No.
No?
You're just trying to rush it through so you get the power is what I'm saying. And I don't want to turn you loose on the power.
I don't know what that means, Ron.
I've been in meetings with you that didn't end well. That's, you know,
We have, again, we're at a point where we have no control.
don't agree, you're not gonna have it anyway. It's a fact.
Motion's made to table. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Roll call.
Tim Clark, how do you vote?
No.
Kevin
No to
Pat-
table.
Kevin Patrick,
Yes.
Ron Sanders,
Yes.
Well, I want to basically place the burden on this, is that if we're going to look at May, or if you want to engage and have them come forth in a meeting that's one-on-one, that's what I want. One-on-one, just like we have. So again, the point was made is we don't need to necessarily pass a resolution to pull them forth and have a public meeting. And if we cannot make that happen before our next meeting in May, then my attitude is we proceed forward with this resolution.
You're saying the one-on-one meeting?
Yes, sir.
In here?
Yes, sir.
That's fine.
That has to be advertised.
It has to be advertised and has to come here.
So there's not a date yet, so.
I would basically say that we can set a date, and if you want to reach out, I assume Kevin Alt is still the president of the board. Let's have him at that engagement. That's my condition on that one.
And the timeline for that is within the next 2 weeks?
It has to happen before the meeting in May.
All right.
That's what I would like to see happen.
That's fine.
And if it doesn't, then we'll go down a different path.
All right.
Anything else?
All right, move along. We review, that's our work in process. Teresa?
Oh. Okay, I have, budget updates are that the Form 1s are due July 1st.
Did they
So,
move that back to the normal time, wasn't it?
yeah,
Okay, good. I thought June was a little early.
we did, yeah.
Okay.
So we are gonna start gathering information in May and June, so be prepared to start looking at budgets when we have our admin. And there is a new auction website that the county's using now. Wanted to tell the citizens about it. It is called Public Surplus. We currently have 6 or more vehicles on there from the sheriff's department. You can go online, look up Brown County Government as the entity, and you will see it on their website, Public Surplus. We had a oversight in sending out property taxes. So want to tell the citizens and remind everyone that dog tax was repealed by the council last year for the year of 2026. So those notices went out in people's tax bills, and you need to ignore them. There is no dog tax. If you've paid dog tax, they go to the treasurer, Julie? Go to the treasurer's office to discuss a refund.
Okay.
Or our office. Either one can do it. And I will be asking to add to your agenda in May a discussion about an ordinance website to have all the county ordinances put into one database, and so that citizens can go to our website, click a link, and they would be able to see in all of our ordinances. You would be able to do a search, you would be able to see the updates. You pay a yearly fee when that happens, so
I
it's,
suggest you also add resolutions.
that is their ordinance / resolutions. And it does have a yearly fee. The first year is higher, $600 for the first year, and then it's $495 every year after that to maintain it. So that means after you have a meeting and you have an ordinance passed and signed and it's recorded, then we would send that to the company and they would put that on in our database.
Okay.
So have one quote. I called another company this afternoon for another quote, so I will be wanting to speak with that.
Are they willing to do the research on all the active ordinances?
Yes, they do, and that is a
Additional fee?
4,000, well, that's the whole project. It's a little over $4,000 to start that, where they take all of the ordinances from all the years past, create the database, and then they maintain it.
Which is a great idea.
And then that was the how much was that, 600 to start, 400 after that? After the initial investment of 4,000 or whatever it was? Okay.
And we've already worked with this company before. When Glenda Stockstill was auditor, she had all of the ordinances put into a book with this company. So they already have a database with us started. So it would just be picking up from 2014 and moving forward.
It's incredible they still have that, right?
Do they have record of how far back they went, search of ordinances and things of that nature?
I called Glenda and asked, and she said it was all of them.
Really?
Oh, you do know? What?
I mean, I have a record of it. We have.
Oh, yeah, we have the books. I got one in my office. But Nashville, town of Nashville uses this database. Bartholomew County uses it. Francis Lakes uses it. They gave me a whole list of surrounding areas that use this current database for ordinance data.
Okay.
So wanted to put that bug in your ear, and please put me on the agenda for May. And that's all I got.
Then we got the distribution of funds, there'd be money left over from that closeout?
Oh, okay, well, the distribution of funds for the dog tax to pay the Purdue extension, the way the contract, the ordinance was originally wrote, is going to change from our last conversation, because now we have a printing bill to pay for the paper that went out.
Okay.
So my numbers to you will change. I'll get those to you next week.
Okay. Thanks, Teresa. Sandra, anything?
Yeah, Trent and I are gonna dive into the bridge inspection report now that it is.
With the microphone.
You want to bust driver voice? So Trent and I are gonna dig into the bridge inspection starting tomorrow. We're gonna go out, look at some of our critical and some of our rehab, and try to get a list together on the top 5 of each one and get a plan together and come up with where we're gonna start.
Okay. And I just want to reiterate, you and I would prefer that you kind of look at your calendar.
Yes.
I would still like to sit down and go through at least a couple hours a week to look at the actual one, start out with the 2026 budget so that we can
Yes.
put identifiers next to those. And then obviously you just heard that Form 1s are due in July, so
Just around the corner.
you can get
Very
to
close.
Yes.
experience that in a much more realistic environment.
Kevin, were you going to say anything on the small vehicle plan replacement?
No, that was basically just coming to you guys to look at that and basically authorize them to proceed forward with it.
All right. Okay. Other Alcohol Tobacco Commission, thank you, Dwayne, for your report. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Ongoing business, we're going to meet a joint meeting with the Area Plan Commission on April 28th. It's going to be, again, a joint session. We're going to go over our suggestions on changes to the comprehensive plan. The upgrade on Pumpkin Ridge Road, the contractors meeting with property owners kind of as we speak. They've been doing it over the past few weeks. And the first public information meeting they're targeting for the June-July timeframe, so they kind of open up, tell you what the plan is going forward. That's about it. May 20th, we'll have Centerstone here on their conference.
They'll do their 15-minute, there's where we're at.
Yeah, okay. All right. Any further questions from the audience?
The ambulance contract, is there any information you can share on that?
No, we're digging into that. We're in the process of collecting the data and reconciling it and looking at options, so that's ongoing. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Sherry said something. Sherry?
I was just like, that it was the ambulance, humane society, policies for capital assets, that whole section. Was there anything else?
No, it's just
So
a
they-
process.
You know, there's a slight change in the Humane Society. They had given us a contract, and when we went back and actually measured it against our typical contracts, it didn't have a termination clause. So Barnes and Thornburg, I don't know if James did that or Stephanie did that, put together 2 items that we're going to basically go back to them and put a termination clause in as it relates to that, to where both parties have the opportunity to terminate. Then there's a recommendation on prorated reimbursement if we choose in the middle of the year. But we haven't talked to them about that yet.
Okay. All right, legal, anything, James?
No, I just wanted to make sure you guys had addressed the contracts, and otherwise, nothing from us.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.